Oh, buddy, I am so excited for today's selection. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Arcane Archive. That's right. We are back once again, as you do, because you know that you love us, and we love you, and we love to be here for you guys. We're coming back at you with another incredible, just exciting, amazing episode of Cautionary Chronicles. Indeed, we have just an amazing showcase for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, buddy, I'm excited to go. Sammy, how are you feeling? You like what kind of the array that we've set up for everyone today?
Sure. Yeah. You know, this is my favorite thing. It's kind of like when we swap war stories about the service industry, and you get to hear the crazy shit that other people went through, and then you look at yourself and you're like, it's not that bad compared to that. That's the only reason why I used to watch Kitchen Nightmares.
Right? Isn't it just interesting to be like,
it was just
wow,
so over the top and ridiculous that I'm like, that's not real life, and at least that's worse than what I'm dealing with right now. When in reality, sometimes it wasn't. But
I was gonna say, sometimes the scariest part is when that is barely an exaggeration from what you actually experience.
I think this gives me the same therapeutic kind of release of like, at least the shit that I'm mad about in my game isn't this bad.
Exactly. See, I mean, that's really the intention, and the point is, is like, one, it gives you a bit more perspective on your own experiences or maybe some other things you've heard about, right? As opposed to what these people might be going through. But it also grants, if for any unfortunate, horrible, God forbid reason that you might encounter these situations or scenarios, that you will be prepped and ready to go with all kinds of tools, suggestions, potential advice for how you to approach and handle, if not overall, just de-escalate and neutralize all the red flags that might potentially come up with your new TTRPG group or a new member that joins. That is overall the direct intention of us doing this particular series. They're Cautionary Chronicles. That's what it's for, to give you all the best opportunity and chance to survive your neckbeard slash that guy slash incel slash creep encounter, as it were. But you know what? That being said, let's go ahead and just run through the normal introductory such. Like, again, please be sure to like and comment on the video down below. Leave some comments and some thoughts about your own horror stories or experiences, if you like, or maybe some ideas on what you guys think would be a good way to approach some of these stories that we tell you. Please do subscribe and share the channel. It helps us out immensely, to get it out there more for more people to kind of see and interact with, and to join us up and have fun together, but with that, let's dive right on into today's episode of Cautionary Chronicles here at the Arcane Archive. Samuel, why don't you go ahead and take us away, buddy? Paint us a picture, Sammy. Paint us a picture.
We're starting a story by Norman No One, I guess would be
all one
word. It's an essay on swords and katanas. As you know, I studied the Bwade.
So, we all studied the Bwade here at the Arcane Archive.
At the Arcane Archive. This is the context is this is in a Telegram group chat. Now, I have never used Telegram, but I can only assume it's just about the same as every other.
I think I have used it like one time.
Oh no, because I do have Telegram now for a work group chat, so they don't.
There you go. Yep.
But TLDR, Bozo, who never touched the rules, not even the quick start for D&D 5e, appears and argues for more or less than 4 hours about wanting to make a Sekiro copy and paste while insulting the DM. The synopsis is as follows. Quote, I want a katana, like a two-handed dexterity weapon in D&D 5e, end quote. Someone responding, there is not. Reskin a longsword or a rapier for the finesse. Response, I don't want to be told it doesn't make sense because it's heavy, and I want to be an agile warrior like Sekiro. This is where hell broke loose. We suggested the monk Kensei, or the Kensei monk, who can do it by the rulebook, is an agile warrior, etc., etc. But Bozo declares monk, rogue, and paladin make him sick, for they are too slow. What? Or fragile, huh? After a couple of minutes, chat discovers that Bozo is sure that having a high strength reduces dexterity because, quote, a muscular character is not agile in Sekiro or Destiny. I don't know where Destiny.
Destiny? You know what? Wait a minute.
No skill points in Destiny. And speech is based on dexterity for God only knows why. It seems that if it's not like the character Bozo has in its mind, it's pure trash. Spoiler, he wanted a 1-to-1 Sekiro main character with perfect parry, long jump, sneak critical, and revive. But he refused to use monk, rogue, fighter, or paladin classes. Cool. We suggested him about raising both strength and dex for a good all-around martial character. But Bozo repeats the last part about speed, etc., etc. A small part of the chat starts to lose hope on him and just leaves the discussion.
Good for them. They were ahead of the curve right there.
That is the high road you should be taking.
They were ahead of the game.
The remaining chat asks him if he's already read the core manual, or at least the free quick start. Bozo has not. He just needs YouTube recorded campaigns for it would be a waste to pay for a book he could throw away if his katana cannot be made. Awesome. Chat still has some hopes for him, so we inquired about Bozo's DM. What are his thoughts about it? The DM is a novice. He has no right to have or give an opinion. What the actual fuck?
Never played and don't.
I love it. I love it so much. Chat tries to make Bozo realize how easily he insulted his DM, but Bozo ignores it all and again asks about his broken katana like a broken vinyl record. Again, for another 3 damn hours, we gently propose to reskin Rapier as a balanced one-handed finesse sword reskinned as a wakizashi. Or a longsword at basically a 2-hand nodachi. Chat got silent and peaceful for a bit. Then he returned. The DM granted me a homebrewed 2-hand D10 bastard sword and a 1-hand D8 with finesse, but I don't want it because he's a novice and therefore not entitled to have opinions. Says the guy who doesn't even know how to play the game.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. We accuse him of trolling, pings chat's mods, and ask him to be respectful to his DM. No, it was all of you who told me I can't do what I want, so I'm stupid. His words, because no one in the chat called him stupid. We just repeated to read the manual. But I am not quitting D&D. Question? Like, I'm confused. Someone in chat proposed a setting-specific magical finesse elven longsword. Sorry, I don't know the actual name. But it's not a katana. I don't know what this has to do with anything. He responded with, I just started playing Destiny 2 and Sekiro and watching Stranger Things, but I know these things. And if I use one-handed katana, you'll think I'm a pussy. Us? Thinking a one-hand weapon is for pussies? In a game where 3/4 of the weapons are one-handed? Mods arrived. So have you read the manual yet? No, why? Ban. Finally, peace is restored, and those poor blacksmiths can return to making classic European swords. And I can return to spam Pathfinder 2E superiority on puny D&D 5e. Bonus, the same Bozo appeared on a different TTRPG Discord server sometime later. Guess what sword he asked about? I do love this. The top comment says, as an aside, early versions of the 5e playtest material actually did have a katana listed as a separate weapon from a longsword. It was a more expensive longsword with the finesse property. That got replaced with, quote, if you want a katana, buy a longsword and just write katana on your character sheet. And then someone responded, yeah, there would be no difference between a katana and a longsword stat-wise. Even finesse is debatable, but I could see maybe homebrewing it as a feature to the samurai subclass to make it finesse. Like, the reality is, you can just flavor anything you use. Why is it, just use a short sword. Use a scimitar, flavor it as a katana. Why does it have to be a high damage dice? Use a rapier, because everyone said you could just use a rapier, and it's not that bad. A D8's pretty good.
I mean, a D8 is fine. Like, that's arguably what a katana would deal anyway.
Also, I hate to be that guy, but the rule of thumb for D&D, a lot of the simple weapons use strength because they are simple weapons. You get into some of the martial weapons, you have big weapons that use strength. Some smaller or more skill-oriented weapons use dex and have the finesse property. Things like the rapier, the whip.
I mean,
but these are weapons that you can't just pick up and use. You think of the spear. The spear or the pike. It is the most used weapon in history. You know why? Because it's not very hard to use,
and it's effective.
all you need is to stand firm and push forward. Vis-a-vis strength. It is not a pinpoint weapon. It is not, you have to hit somewhere, it is go for center mass, hope you hit between the plates on someone's armor, or hope you hit someone's horse, right? I mean, that's the whole concept of medieval weapons.
It is the concept of it. Arguably, there can be some more skill or finesse applied, but...
Sure. In 5e, the way that I look at it is that if you want to use Dex as your main damage stat, you get two options. Or three technically. The three options are ranged, whether that's thrown or with a bow or crossbow or a blowgun or whatever, a boomerang, ranged. Okay, you can use two smaller finesse weapons. 2 daggers, 2 short swords, a short sword and a scimitar. If you take the dual wielding feat, you can use 2 rapiers. Cool. The idea of that is you can attack an extra time with your bonus action because you're so dexterous, right? Now you can do that with a strength weapon too. You can have 2 hand axes, 2 light hammers, whatever. Or you're a duelist. You have 1 sword and you keep your other hand free, whether that's for magic, for just dueling in general. That is a build that you can do. But it's if you want to hit things with a big sword, just go strength, take a middle dex like 14, so you're still decent at dex, maybe 16 dex, but you want to go strength, you want to get a big fucking greatsword and hit things.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like that,
you can flavor it whatever you want.
That's what I mean. Well, I will say, obviously, with a katana, there is obviously definitely some fair arguments to be made that it is more dex based, because it isn't about like katana like swordsmanship has never been about just straight strength. It's not the same as like a true longsword, right? As like a medieval or European longsword. European longswords, a lot of the time, they were much more like blunt. Even they weren't like sharp.
They were also heavier.
They were heavier. Well, yeah,
because
the cross guard, everything of it was like, it was just heavier. Whereas katanas have always been more so about specific, very specific pinpoint skill, speed, accuracy. So there is absolutely a very fair, reasonable argument to be like, well, I want a longer sword, maybe not a short sword that just deals a D6 dice. And it could be a katana. So the thing is, once again though, to Sam's earlier point, it is so easy. I don't think it's going to be a shitty or horrible or super huge thing to ask your GM, can I just flavor this long sword as a katana that uses finesse, so I can use dex? Like,
I want a
or even just the rapier.
Well, it's like, okay, so you say rapier, I say, well, that's a one-handed weapon.
Yeah, it's just
one-handed. Two-handed.
So,
it's a D8. I would like to use a two-handed weapon. I'm not going to be using a shield. I'm not going to be dual wielding. I want to use one weapon.
What is it? Versatile weapon.
But here's the deal, right? Is it really going to break your game to say, yeah, here, use a longsword. It's finesse. It's a D10. No, it's not. It's not going to break your game.
It's not going to break.
One, you have to use 2 hands.
Yeah, for the D10.
We'll just say there is no versatile on it. It's just a D10 two-handed sword.
Sure.
Cool. You can't use a shield. You can't attack with one hand. You can take your hand off, cast spells, put your hand back on if you have spells or other abilities. But yeah, you are stuck in a two-handed D10 weapon. This weapon is not going to be available everywhere. You might not be able to find this weapon as enchanted variants as easily, but if that's what you want to do,
maybe.
go for it.
Let's say
even if you want to do it, you don't even have to. It doesn't really matter. But the reality is, like, you're not losing anything. Like, no one's going to be that overpowered from it. But
it's not. That's what I mean. Like, it's not a huge thing for the GM to be like, okay, you know what? Just reflavor or retexture a fucking long sword. Okay, yeah. Just make it versatile, because like they're gonna make the argument like, well, I don't have to hold it with 2 hands, like, but I want to be able to. It's like, okay, sure. You know what?
Fuck it, whatever.
Fine. There is absolutely a thing, especially in all kinds of katana swordsmanship schools where it's like, oh, your attacks are gonna be 2-hand or stronger with 2 hands rather than just one. But okay, fine. Just retexture it.
Well,
Give it finesse.
The reality is,
it's not going to break your game.
I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about katanas because I didn't study the blade. But something
you studied the Bwade, not the blade.
I did study the Bwade. Something I do know, I think, is that most fighting done with a katana was not done with one hand anyway.
Well, no. It was primarily 2 hands.
The first strike out of the sheath, stuff like that, more technical moves, sure, that could have been something that happens. But on a battlefield, wielding a katana for a long period of time, you are going to do much better with 2 hands. Because again, their iron and their metal was not great quality, which is why they had to fold it so many damn times to make a
decent sword.
It's not
about strength, it's about finesse and like where you're striking.
But it's only about finesse in the terms of the technique using the blade, right? You don't use it like a long sword. You don't pummel someone with it.
No.
But katanas that are longer and used normally with two hands are not easy to swing around with one hand. Having strength is part of it.
They still had weight. They had weight to them.
They used momentum in their favor, which is something that it's hard to do if you are not strong of stature. Look, think of like football players. They have to use momentum and control themselves on pinpoint. Yes, there's dexterity to that. There is also plenty of strength, because if you are
100%.
just lithe and just dexterous, you try to pinpoint turn that momentum, you're falling over.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's the reality. It's both. And like that's why I don't
It's a combination of it. Well, I mean, that's obviously one of the slight weaknesses, I guess, of just the system of 5e of it, is because
of all D&D.
Of all D&D, of all any TTRPG, is that it's like so many things could potentially be, they cross over with one another, and it's a lot of the time it's a mixture of the two so-called separate stats. But I'll say one last thing about this too, is that technically speaking, if we're going to just go by actual, realistic historical, they didn't actually even use katanas as an actual warfare weapon. It was usually used in executions or maybe like more official duels and such. But a lot of the time, those would be done without armor. And it would usually just be like one quick attack, maybe from each person, and whoever, got the kill, they got the kill. Whereas on an actual battlefield, most of the time, like they would be using completely different weapons. They'd be using pole arms, spears. They'd be using bow and arrows. They'd be using like your katana was normally only used as an absolute last resort, where like you got knocked off your horse or the enemy got really close in quarters, and then you'd pull out the katana and start, going like that. It was not actually a primary weapon, but obviously, in today's more meta world, the katana is like this really hugely revered weapon, which, it was always considered sacred, of course, but it's now considered like this is like the go-to weapon for swords, because it looks cool. It's pretty badass and fun to like check it out. And the design is nice. Like it's, it's cool in that way. But overall, if we're talking about legitimate, most effective just means of weaponry, it wasn't even actually used like that for the most part in actual combat and warfare. It was primarily executions, official duels, and last resort kind of thing. Unless, of course, like, whatever. But that being the case, this whole thing is pretty fucking hilarious and funny. Just that this guy is so hell-bent on this one item, this one specific. In fact, he's talking about Sekiro and freaking Destiny. Like, first, Destiny doesn't even, like, it uses swords, kind of, but they're usually the worst weapons to really use in Destiny. Like, they are just not nearly as effective as so many other guns and weapons. Like, I don't know what he's talking about, especially when like the swords in Destiny are normally pretty big swords. They're huge. It's like they would be more strength rather than dex. So I don't know what he's talking about, being like, they're not fast enough. Like, if anything, the Destiny swords would be like a paladin. They would all be like paladins. And he's talking about how the monk and the rogue, hell, even the fighter, aren't fast. What do you mean? What are you talking about? What other classes would be? What are you talking about? He doesn't even know anything about the rules, and he's sitting here trying to say the GM has no right to be able to put in their particular opinions or thoughts because they're casual or they're a novice, so they don't count. It's like, so are you. What are you talking about? Oh my God. People like this blow my goddamn mind. I don't even, like, I feel like he had to have been a troll. I cannot for the life of me believe that this was real. I can't. I absolutely refuse. But you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next one of the day real quick. This one, we're keeping with the theme here, you guys. The first couple of rounds are going to be on the shorter side for the stories and tales, but we'll make sure to obviously we don't even try to do this. It just happens. We just go off on long tangents, so we can make like a 30-second story be like a freaking 2-hour one just on the rants alone. But that being the case, second story of the day is titled, I love TTRPGs, but I hate TTRPG gamers, by Wrong Kami. This is going to be more of a rant based on my experience, but I have to say it somewhere in here. Most of the stereotypes about TTRPG gamers are true. I have left one of my gaming tables exactly because of this. Now I'm looking for a new one, and why, God? Why can't you guys just be effing normal for once? I can understand it, like, you know, in the 90s. Hell, I can even understand it in the early 2000s when this was just so niche, only the weirdest of weirdos liked the hobby. You know, I was 15 at the time, so of course I was a weird ass kid. But god effing damn it, you have had either time to grow the hell up or have been born in a time when TTRPGs are becoming mainstream. The F is your excuse now. How can a grown-ass 30-plus son of a bee ask me to be a Malkavian with a child flaw whose derangement is nymphomania? What is wrong with you? How can I find people who can't still hold a conversation for more than 10 minutes and not struggle to retain information from the beginning of the said conversation? How come when I come to a new table, I have to struggle for people to look me in the eye and say, hey, welcome to our table? Do you guys really think it's better to huddle over each other, hunching and looking at your character sheets and just mumble a simple, hey, towards my general direction? Do you think it's welcoming to play in an L5R as a new player who doesn't know the setting and give me side-eye because my character is dishonorable? Do you think it's effing normal that I always have to be the one ordering the pizzas because you guys can't talk to the cashier who just so happens to be a girl? Do you think I will think highly of you if, when your flatmate passes by to go to the kitchen, you come closer and say, you see that piece of ass? Yeah, I tapped that. No, you haven't, Steve. No, you effing haven't. Because she's looking at us like we're a couple of effing creeps. Because probably you are an effing creep. And she has assumed, rightly, that by association, I am as well. F my effing life. End post. This right here, I feel, is a perfect representation of what me and Sammy have showcased and channeled and felt. And maybe all of you have also, upon reading a lot of these stories, have felt. And just like, you know, I mean, Sam, I feel like maybe he hasn't had this. Obviously, he's been lucky and has had like the same gaming group for like 7 years up to this point. Whereas I have definitely gone through a similar experience to this, where it's just like, it's never really been quite the same, where I've had people that bad, where they're like so utterly like neat, socially inept, awkward, and just kind of like whatever, that they can't even engage in like a social conversation or interaction to even the slightest extent. But I've definitely bounced around from places, and I've come across a number of people, not a lot, like it would be like, you know, maybe 1 to 2 players every couple of like groups maybe I've been a part of, that they are just effed up for, like, they are super cringe. They are just like, you know, and this kind of thing, I think obviously the appeal of fantasy, right? Kind of taking a little break from reality. Again, what is the word that we use, Sammy? I always forget it right when I need to use it the most. We're taking a little bit of just you know, a break from reality, where you're trying to maybe not quite a disassociation, but everybody needs it. A little bit of it is healthy, you know, when you're trying to when you're playing either video games or going to any kind of fantasy thing where you're trying to like escapism, yes, where you know, the appeal of escapism in this is obviously going to probably bring a lot of people like this who they are socially and awkward or inept or you know, they have crippling anxiety or whatever else. You know, it's gonna bring a lot of people who their reality here is probably less than stellar or satisfying. And so, yeah, that's probably going to attract, unfortunately, a number of people who are creepy too, because these people who are creepy usually are people that live in their own fantasy for the most part, right? Like, they don't really acknowledge the reality because it's easier or more convenient to just live in the fantasy. And so doing this in an environment where it's not only like accepted, but actually expected for you to basically create your own fantasy and live in it, unfortunately, it's going to attract a lot of the negative aspects too, to people who kind of just want that to be real. But I feel, I just want to say, OP, if you ever see this video, I feel you, brother. I really do. I'm sorry that I'm sorry, especially that you seem to have just, I guess, the worst luck too. with your groups that you find, because you just keep finding, I guess, the worst of the worst too, which is pretty impressive. Like I've had some decently like bad ones, but I've only had, I think, one horror story, which is the cringe campaign that I've told you guys about a couple of times. Like that absolutely stands alone as like the only campaign where shit like that has truly happened, where it was just like, wow, this is effed up, like for realsies. Like other moments have just been, not a great fit, or maybe some douchebags or jerks here or there. That's also just a thing in life in general. But you seem to have a pretty terrible, pretty horrendous luck, OP, for having to find all of like this. Unless, of course, this is all just one group too, in which case that's still impressive, I must say. I also see, like, kind of down below some of the comments, one dude goes, sounds exhausting. I mostly encounter annoying players who want to be the solo hero, or have a background of killing a dragon / enslaving an arch hag or something at level 1, and then die because of a group of the lowest level 1 mobs just tear them apart. I had one person at my table claim that playing TTRPG is cheaper than having appointments with a psychologist. Needless to say, he was kicked out short after. See? Literally just what I said. Like, you get a lot of people who do that. And you know what's interesting? I have also actually thought about and kind of theorized or pondered, like, hey, TTRPGs maybe actually could be a very effective or powerful therapeutic tool if used appropriately and properly and responsibly. Like,
I mean, the same way that weird, what's that weird company that does therapy video game sessions? Have you seen ads for that? It looks so fucking scammy. Like you basically meet
I've
with a mental
heard, I
health
think, something
professional.
about that, but I
It's
don't
something
think
like
I've
you meet with a
seen.
mental health professional and you play like Stardew Valley and you just talk. Now, like, I don't know if you did you play with Legos as a kid?
Oh, very much so. All the
Okay,
Bionicles,
did you
Legos, all
did you
the.
play with Legos with other people where you just had a big box and you just sat in a room and you just
Yeah.
put stuff together and you just talked. You didn't think about what you were saying. It was stream of consciousness. Just there's a
I
podcast I
mean,
listen to, they call it Lego Talk.
yeah.
It is literally just the action of like you're sitting around playing games with your friends or doing something that you don't really have to pay attention
Yeah,
that
no,
much
it's
to.
just pretty just
And
autopilot.
it's just because you're focused on something, it's just stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
That's I could see D&D or playing games being something like that, where it's just a space to talk and listen and be listened to and listen to someone else and have and that can be therapeutic. I do not think this is in any
No,
way, shape, or form
no.
actual therapy. Go to a therapist. It can be helpful. It can
I
be a
mean,
way
it
for
can be
people to.
cathartic. It can
It
be a
could
way,
it could be a social, like a way to for someone to be social who's not normally social.
That's what I mean. It can help people
Um,
kind of get better at that. It can bring
yeah,
people out of their shell. I mean,
but
hell,
goddamn, it's not a
it,
meant. It is not.
well, not unless, of course, it is, again, deliberately designed or intended to be that, with people who understand and have researched this thing. Like, again,
Sure.
people who are actually capable and truly responsible with this type of thing. You can't just go into any freaking TTRPG game and just be like,
No.
well, I'm gonna go ahead and just dump all of my shit on here
Well,
now.
that's the other
And
thing, right?
it's
Is
like, people did not agree to that. People did not consent to that. That is not at all their job, or you have a right to do that with people
yeah.
who did not
I,
ask for it.
I could
Like,
see someone comparing this to group therapy, but the problem is there's still no unless your DM is a mental health professional, it is just a group of people pushing their traumas onto each other with someone that's trying to mediate the best they can, or someone who is taking advantage of these trauma-laden people for sick twisted fun on their end.
or
And
some kind
you
of
know,
personal gain or whatever.
and
So
that's unfortunate and a very dark thing to think about. But it's probably happened. We've definitely seen instances of people who power trip and
I mean, I was
things
gonna
like
say, I mean,
that.
I'm sure
But
there's like cult types of things, or
oh
whatever,
yeah,
that like
well, why
try to
not?
use stuff like
But
that. Like,
it's tough because I like the idea of this being a therapeutic thing for somebody, but I don't think it is in any way a substitute unless someone wanted to create a company or institution or some sort of service that is literally I am a psychiatrist or
I mean, that's what I'm
psychology.
saying.
I'm a
Like,
mental health professional that runs D&D games for people to try to help them
yeah.
maybe deal with social anxieties and traumas. But the
Yep.
problem is that there had to be so much like paperwork
Oh
and
yeah. No, there'd be a
agreements,
lot of
because
just like,
group therapy it can be dangerous when you have a bunch of unstable people who don't know how to interact with each
oh
other.
yeah, and all talking and
Um,
trying to be vulnerable and stuff and
or
that, yeah.
or those people then triggering each other, stuff like that. But the idea of it's really cool. I wouldn't
Again,
expect it
the theory is
ever.
definitely like interesting. I've thought about it as well, but it's obviously just like anything, the execution of it is
So
far
tough.
and away difficult. I mean, hell, any amount of real like mental health,
I mean, they're guessing
therapy,
too.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Even the most professional of so-called mental health, whatever, it's literally just about working. Like you just have to constantly work and do your best because nobody is necessarily all going to be the same in terms of what they require and need to make breakthroughs, to get better, to grow, to heal, to mend, So it's like all it is really is, yeah, it's just a bit of a trial and error of just figuring out what is the source or the source or the root cause of some of your problems, some of your trauma, your issues, and whether or not the person in question is willing to do the work to get there and then to figure out solutions to maybe help get by and accept, let go of, and grow from it, and past it. So overall, I definitely think that the idea of TTRPGs helping with that, I think, is exponential. Again, just with a sense of escapism. It can help you maybe, whatever, but it is exceedingly important that nobody just goes into any game and is just going to start dumping shit randomly. You should only ever do that with a person who has actually acknowledged, accepted, and said, hey, yes, this is what I have chosen. This is what I'm here for. I've done my best to research. I've done my best to, get the necessary knowledge and whatever. And I'm here to try and help with this specifically. Like the only time. And even then, a person who's technically, got a degree for it might not even still be great at it either. It's all in all, it's all just trial and error and just doing your best at the end of the day. But overall, it's definitely true. That kind of thing can be quite a slippery slope. So best to just have fun. That's what the game is primarily here for. It's here to have fun. And so please don't try to ruin everybody else's fun by selfishly inserting your own toxic trauma, and shit or whatever. Like find other ways and places for that to be resolved. Again, with people who are literally helping. There are tons of other services and resources available for that thing. You don't need to just dump it here with these people who haven't asked for it. But with that, let's move on to the next one real quick, y'all. This one is also titled The Guy Who Thinks That Everything Sucks by Flock. So, I was hosting for a group of strangers, and they were in the process of creating their characters. One guy decided to be a cultist, since the only means of gaining magic in this world is to sell your soul to a higher being and gain their favor and affinity through your actions. In exchange, they reward you with power. The cult that he was born into was decided randomly through means of the dice roll. His first patron, the Void Core. Its aspects of dominion are void, madness, nothingness, and sacrifice. It gives you the power to delete things on a fundamental level and bring forth the unknowable force of the void. GM, this sucks. Void is useless. What? Okay. I guess I'll allow you to reroll then. Hey, it's best for you to have fun after all. His second patron, the Warden. Its aspects of dominion are time, space, laws, and physics. It is a being of pure order that upholds the natural laws of the universe and does not take kindly to things that attempt to warp them. It gives you the powers of space-time manipulation, but punishes you severely if you use them to cause chaos. What space? Like matter, fabric of reality. Nah, space is weak. The Warden sucks. What else you got? What? Wait, what? Okay. I suggest that he picks some other origin instead then. He agrees and decides to be born as an engineer. Cool. So what does this do? You can make contraptions and invent things and stuff. You know, get creative. Can I make an army of like robots? Yeah, but you know, you'll need like a lot of materials and resources for that. And you'll need to obtain like unique upgrades for the robots. You know, you have to probably like start inventing. GM, why do you want me to fail? Other players were complaining that he's been far too whiny and is asking too many questions instead of just playing the game. Ended up ruining everyone's motivation to play. Thank you all for reading. End post. You know, just right off the bat, like, again, the first patron he rolled, quite frankly, I'm like, bro, he hit the goddamn jackpot. That sounds absolutely busted. The ability to delete things on a fundamental level and then bring forth the unknown force of the void, like, he literally just sounds like like My Hero Academia. Have you seen or read that anime / manga? Do you know like a character in there who can literally like his name is Shigaraki. He can literally like he's the guy with like all the hands and shit all over him.
Yeah, doesn't he just like turns people to dust?
He can literally touch shit and basically unravel their existence like on a fundamental. Like, it's literally like this, where it's like he touches something and they just disintegrate. They are obliterated from reality. And it's like that is one of the most busted, overpowered abilities in that anime. And it's like just like this. It's like you just destroy something fundamentally. And it's like it's just literally saying void is useless. Like I don't understand what is he basing this off of? This guy is like the same thing as the original dude on an essay on swords and katanas. What is he basing this stance off of? Like, and then he's like, he doesn't. Wait a minute. He's playing this game. The GM literally says like, hey, you're the next patron you have. He has literal control of time, space, laws, and physics. And dude's literally like, what space? My dude, my nigga, have you never played Pokemon Diamond and Pearl before?
Like, I'm pretty sure if this is in D&D. I can't tell if it's 5e or not or whatever, but I think this is just the patron, not necessarily what extra powers they get as a warlock at a low level or whatever. But like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if you've played a warlock in a campaign that like the person actually put in a lot of time to make your patron an unknowable entity that skirts around the fabrics of reality and torments you on a regular basis. But I did. I mean, the tattoo is from that. And the character doesn't even follow that patron anymore because I was tempted to join a hive mind where I would lose that character forever.
Yep.
Which I still might do at some point. But that's like you don't necessarily get powers like outside of your subclass or whatever, but a cool DM will let pieces fall where they may and might let you do things that you shouldn't be able to do. I had that. I could see things I wasn't supposed to. I have flashbacks of things that happened or never happened or were supposed to happen. I could feel the presence of other people affected by my patron. That's not part of the game. That's something that they did as a bonus because I played into and actually listened to a patron. So dude just sounds like a whiny piece of shit because if someone puts in that amount of effort,
you're a good GM, you know.
Yeah, if someone puts in that amount of effort to make a class that is widely considered to be one of the, I think, on the lower end of.
It's one of the worst, yeah. Or at least it used to be. I think they bumped up its ability in the newer, in the new revision 5.5. We'll I mean, I think they have. I've seen it. Like they have the Warlock out for it, and it's definitely different now. It's not.
We'll see how it plays.
Where it used to be.
It's terrifying. I'm really terrified of all of this.
Agreed.
But yeah, like if someone's going to do all that, I don't do well with it. If someone's going to put in all that effort, I mean, you could at least play into it and see where it goes instead of just complaining and bitching.
I mean, that's what I'm going to say. Like, I'm pretty sure. I don't even think this is necessarily 5e. This might be an entirely different like game entirely, and like because at least the way that the GM describes it, he literally says, for this game in this world, the only means of gaining magic is by doing this. So I mean, it sounds almost like maybe it's a fully homebrewed world. I don't know. Maybe it's a completely different system entirely that we're just not aware of. But either way, what you described, it's like that just sounds badass as hell. It would be one thing if he took the ability or took the patron and then like found out later that, oh, this doesn't even do the thing that you said that it would do. Like what?
Yeah.
Like what's going on? That would be one thing. But he literally heard the description, which was badass as hell, and immediately goes like void is useless. So either the GM maybe isn't sharing or the OP isn't sharing like all of the information where it's like he literally gave him the description, and then the problem player was like, okay, well, what does that do in game mechanically actually? Like what does that actually, how does that transmit to, you know, or translate to mechanics? And he was like, oh, this is just this actually. And he's like, well, that's weak as shit. Honestly, though, I feel like I might be a little bit more inclined to believe OP and that this dude was literally just hearing some shit. And I don't even know what the hell he was on. Like, I don't even know why he's playing this game. You've never heard of space powers? You've never heard of, like, warping the fabric of reality? Do you read comic books? Do you play any kind of, like, Pokemon game? Or have you played Final Fantasy? Like, bro, are you even a nerd? I'm officially revoking your nerd card, bro. Get the fuck out of here, man. Get out of our fucking hobby, out of our freaking niche, out of our genre, whatever you want to call it. You are not invited to the club anymore. Revoked. You're revoked. You're banned. You're exiled. You have been blacklisted, burn noticed, all the shit.
Damn, Adam, you took his end card like that?
I took his end card like that, bro. Just like that. Straight like that. But all in all, I think that's probably about all we got for this one here, everybody. Let's move on to the next one of the day. Sammy, go ahead and take it away. He's particularly excited about this one.
Well, kind of. I have the Cringe Power DM. Now, I read this before. I don't entirely understand how the title has to do with the rest of this, but it's fine. This is just a sad person who can't figure out how to interact. By the Mighty Anarchist. My friends and I moved to a new town about 2 years ago. It was slow making friends, as we had found that making friends in your late 20s is a little hard to do. We tried making some posts to find people via D&D, as my friend David had played quite a bit and got me and my friend Hannah interested in the game so that we would all play together. And David got to practice being a DM. With weeks turning to months, we resigned to making a post in the local subreddit to see if anyone in the area was willing to play with us. We eventually stumbled onto Kevin. Kevin seemed okay at first. We would not find out until after the fact that there were a few posts on his account we should have looked at first. Might have saved us all the trouble.
Oh boy.
We started with playing Curse of Strahd.
Oh no.
No, this is funny. Okay. I had gotten it as a gift for David a couple years back, and we were never able to complete it. I thought this would be a fun module to get everyone acquainted, and we would have a fun time. David was our DM, and things were okay at first. The only real complaint is that Kevin never took any of the story hooks. After a few sessions, Hannah voiced that this setting was not what she expected and asked if we could do a new campaign. She wasn't expecting Curse of Strahd to be as much of a mystery as it is, and more expected a typical D&D adventure, focused on vampires. This was totally fine with David, and since I am also super new to D&D, it was fine with me too. Curse of Strahd was the only module I had played, and it was all I knew about D&D. I was more familiar with what Curse of Strahd is about, but was also itching to try something more traditional. Kevin voiced that this could be a fun time for him to possibly DM and give David some time as a player, as that is something he had voiced in the past. We were all very enthusiastic about the change and left the final Curse of Strahd session anticipating what module we would be playing next. Oh, how wrong we would end up being. In retrospect, this would be the first red flag we should have paid more attention to. So I'm going to just put it out there as someone who played Curse of Strahd. It is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is a traditional D&D experience.
I mean, it depends on what you're trying to say.
Yeah, mystery is
or
part of the three pillars of play. The exploration, and role playing part of those two of the three pillars. I think Curse of Strahd, obviously, I think when you say traditional, you're expecting more of a streamlined story. Curse of Strahd is definitely more. Let's go whatever way we want to go.
It's very open. It's more sandboxy.
Because if you ignore every plot hook in Curse of Strahd, I don't know where the fuck you're gonna end up. You have to take something.
You got to go just somewhere. There are very specific areas
similar to Tomb of Annihilation, albeit Tomb of Annihilation is much larger. You have to take some sort of plot hook. Otherwise, you'll just do nothing. Or you'll just get killed in.
I mean, I was gonna say that's just the case with any D&D game.
Well,
Like,
not really, because if you play Horde of the Dragon Queen, it's gonna just railroad you. You play
well,
Ice
what I'm
Fire
saying
Peak,
is
it's pretty much a railroad, but that's
it's
okay.
a railroad, but it also still is dependent on you taking the hooks and going along with what is obvious, what you need to do.
But
like,
if a DM is running it via the module, you're going to have a very hard time diverging from what is kind of already planned.
Yep.
But that's fine. I get that, especially if you're not as used to D&D. Actually, playing one of the more railroady, streamlined adventures can be helpful to newer players.
Yeah, I absolutely think railroad is the first one helpful at times.
So I can't even shit talk it. I played wildly the worst rated campaign as my first campaign, and was it good? No. Did I enjoy it? Yes. But that's kind of a different way to look at it. But so they didn't have a bad time in Curse of Strahd. It was just a little bit too much for them, it seems.
Again, it's a lot. Like for beginner, like it is the most popular module to date in 5e. Like more people have played and love Curse of Strahd than any other module that they have released up to this point. And it shows. I mean, hell, they literally revamped it. They brought it back from it. Well, I think it was originally a 2e, right? It was originally an advanced D&D module, I think, even. Maybe it was 3.5. I forget exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's one of like some of the original ones and people loved it so much they brought it back for 5th edition, and people then loved it just as much, if not more.
They even brought back Murder House, which
well, that's arguably I was arguing whether or not they should do that, but
I haven't run it, so I can't say. We didn't include it in ours.
It is widely infamous for
we
TPK.
died plenty without it.
I mean, you will. But anyway,
I did. Kevin met up with us the following week asking if we had heard of Critical Role. This is why this interested me. I was vaguely familiar.
Matt Mercer effect.
Vaguely familiar with it, but didn't know anything about it except that Matt Mercer was involved and it was a very popular D&D thing. He was very adamant. Kevin was very adamant about giving it a shot. Hannah and I voiced how we did not know anything about Critical Role, the world, lore, people, episodes, and that we didn't really have any knowledge of D&D at all, really. So they're noobs, is what they're saying. We asked about starting with something basic. A classic D&D adventure, a classic D&D type adventure, as Hannah and I never really played one of those. We had no frame of reference for how much items cost, what towns are like in D&D, or what a typical adventure even is. He was adamant that the Critical Role module had exactly what we were looking for, but wanted to stress how much cool stuff we could end up doing. We were all excited to try, but we were hesitant on going in based on his description of the alternate feats you can take and all these crazy classes and stuff you can do. And he never really explained that it's not set in Faerun, the typical D&D setting, but was a bit overwhelming to say the least. Hannah and David decided to roll whole new characters for this campaign. I was getting a bit attached to my Curse of Strahd character, a parody of Gex the Gecko, played as a kobold, and asked if it was all right if I made my character think he was teleported by Strahd, and for the first half of the session play like he thinks this is a dream, before realizing he is just in a new place. His motivation then being trying to get back to his old party. He never voiced a problem with this character idea, but his motivation never came to fruition. Yeah, it's not really a good idea either, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think that you need to just make your character as part of this.
Let's also be real though. Again, this is supposed to be the DM who maybe steers you away from something like this, especially as a new player. Yeah, this person had played in one game previously, and that was his only experience. In a small group with just friends. In the first session, we wake up in the desert during a festival that rarely happens, and everyone wants you to drink the water. I, in an attempt to roleplay a bit, decided Gex would want to get a lay of the land, so to speak, and see what the town was like. I tried to get him to get an outside view of the town, when 2 guards tried to immediately subdue me. I rolled well to get out of their grip, but the DM decided they were just still grappling me. My friends came to see the commotion and get me released. But then the entire town opens up and there's a heist or something happening with a crater-like hole in the ground. Separately, since my character is in the process of being arrested, and with the town rising up on the back of a giant turtle creature, the party was now split. Our characters are attacked from multiple angles and unable to reconvene. This all happens in the span of maybe 15 minutes in real time from us sitting in our chairs, and we spent the next hour and a half trying to figure out how to meet up. Before we could get any context on what the festival is or any of the context of what might be going on, I am Yeah, basically they have no idea what's going on and no context to give for anything.
Nope.
I am all for a strong start, but this was a bit crazy for me. We end after a 2-hour combat session with a bunch of robbers, I think, and conclude to descend into a dungeon that was hiding under the town. After session 1, Hannah and I are already pretty lost in terms of what's going on, and Kevin is still playing things close to his chest. Whatever, maybe there's a big reveal that will make everything make sense coming soon. Session 2, we climb down the shaft, and after rolling a few stealth checks and getting absolutely no information on what could be going on from anyone in the dungeon, go for a long shot and lie our way aboard a flying pirate ship akin to something from Treasure Planet. Most of the session is dialogue of us having to lie to people with no knowledge of who anyone is. And we spend most of the session traveling to end up in a steampunk world with people with rifles and Mad Max motorcycles. Hannah and I exchange looks during some of these scenes as this is immediately not what we were talking about when we said we wanted a classic D&D type adventure. It does end up being the town where David's character is from, though, so there's some potential for story building there. Maybe context is coming after all. After some brief dismissals from the captain and first mate, who now trust us enough to tell us where we're going, but not enough to tell us literally anything else, we meet a shady orphanage owner, and Hannah immediately calls it as a hag, based on how they were talking and acting. Kevin did not seem to like that. The orphanage owner sends us on a quest where we end up in a bar shootout with an orc and a lot of his cronies with guns. And Hannah's character basically jumps on the orc and kills him solo while David and I distract or fend off the gunman. When we finish our quest, David and I receive loot as a reward while Hannah's character got nothing. We did not notice this at the time, but looking back, he would do things like that. If you called it a chest was probably a mimic, which was literally 80% of the containers we found, nothing would be inside. Or if you were doing really well in a dungeon, suddenly there was a rule that you needed to call to check for traps during the time you were deciding the order of everyone about to enter a room. Things like that. So it sounds like this guy was getting salty about them figuring things out, despite him not giving them anything to figure out. After the session, we all talk, and I flat out tell him that I'm not having a good time with this campaign so far. It seems way more sci-fi than we discussed, and nowhere near the typical D&D adventure that we were wanting. He seemed receptive after some pushback at first, and we made sure he knew it was nothing about his DM style. Because at the time we didn't notice some of these more glaring issues, and that we just wanted more of what we discussed. Plus, he said the book had areas like what we were talking about, so we didn't think it would be that big of a deal. Due to life events, we had to postpone a few sessions and ended up playing every other week for a while. We were under the impression that this was okay, and to be frank, these were things we could not skip, and D&D is very much an extracurricular for us. Other priorities take precedent over games in our lives. We thought this was something Kevin would understand, being closer in age to us, especially since weekly sessions were never something we agreed on in the first place. Things took a bit of an odd turn, however, when a few days later I received a lengthy Discord message from him stating that he felt disrespected and that he felt his time was not being taken seriously, citing the rescheduling. We apologized if he felt slighted, but reiterated that these were non-negotiable events in our lives, some of which came up unexpectedly. But the shortest amount of notice we gave him for not being able to make it that week's session was 4 days. We were under the impression that this would be ample time to give notice. He told us he was under a different set of standards and that he did not want to waste his time. It took a while, but we all ended up on good terms and a better understanding of one another. During the time off of him picking something new for us, we decided to get to know him better outside of D&D. I introduced him to Magic the Gathering, and we went to our first pre-release together. We had dinner together a few times. One of these times I noticed his puzzle collection, and he voiced to me that he wished he could complete one, so I offered to cook dinner and we could do one of his puzzles. Glue it and then hang it up. I even baked a ziti, of course, and brought it to his house. Family recipe, very special and delicious.
It definitely, I love ziti.
I love it. This is when everything came to a head. David was recovering from some minor surgery, so Hannah and I went over with the ziti to hang out and do the puzzle. I thought that was the plan, but when we got there, he seemed confused as to why I would want to do a puzzle. We ended up doing it anyway and got talking about personal stuff. After some drinks, mostly him doing tequila shots and trying to convince Hannah to do them with him, he divulged that he was pursuing a relationship with a married woman and child, and that he was upset that...
Married woman with a child.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's what I meant. And that he was upset that she seemed to want to try and fix things with her husband rather than be with him. Woo! To the point of disparaging the guy for trying to fix his marriage. This really caught us by surprise. What caught us more by surprise was how he didn't seem to care what this would do to the child, who was around 8 at the time. Hannah explained that pursuing a relationship like that seemed messy, and should maybe be treated with more care than just trying to sleep with this woman. His quote was, "Maybe I like it messy." He then proceeded to watch us try and do the puzzle for him for the next 3 hours, and he kept saying, "I am not good at puzzles. I would just get in the way." My brother in Christ, why did you buy 5 of the damn things then? He also kept bringing himself down, which will come up again. We started to notice that he would make comments that he was stupid or that nobody wanted to hear what he had to say. We repeatedly told him that that was not the case and that we love spending time with him. I am used to a little bit of
Don't lie to the man. Come on now. What's
I am
wrong
used
with
to
you
a little bit
guys?
of self-deprecation, but the bitterness in his voice made me think that he had something more angry behind it.
With the ZD right there and
I know.
everything? Oh, come on, bro.
Our first session in the new campaign started out fine enough. We all rolled new characters at level 3. We were told we were starting in what amounted to be a small fishing village. Oh, sorry. We were ordered to clear out a goblin cave and collect the ears. Simple enough and a great start to what we were talking about with the quote, the classic D&D experience. I really hate this thing that they keep saying.
Yeah.
But this is where the majority of the problems arise. For starters, David's character never seemed to get a chance to roll for traps. Kevin would ask for saves so fast, nobody had time to react. Before we had mentioned that we wanted to move forward, we would say what order everyone was in. David usually taking the front, then he would say, "Okay, roll for dex." A log you didn't see starts swinging towards you. He also made every chest in the cave a mimic with nothing inside, and these were not short encounters either. We went down probably 3 times to traps and goblins, with David's character taking almost twice his health total over the course of one session. We never had this much trouble in Curse of Strahd, and from what I know, that campaign is supposed to be on the harder side. We make the call to leave the dungeon before we could clear it completely, make it back to town and rest. The next day we head back to the cave in the morning, and David's character almost goes down from the same traps. The goblins had retrapped the whole cave overnight, and when David tried to roll to check for traps, he failed all of them, despite David pointing out that he was here yesterday and got hit by all these traps, so he should maybe know where a couple of them are. But the roll for success was very high for these traps in a dungeon for level 3 characters. David was rolling 15s and still could not see them. Finally, we hear a group of them in the next room, so we decided to beat them at their own game. We tie a trip rope and make a noise to get their attention to trip them. We had to remind Kevin 3 times about the trap, which we rolled very well to set up quickly and quietly. We still had to fight him for it to have any effect. He told us that one of the goblins set themselves on fire and hurled towards us. But after finally relenting that our trap should do something, it failed a dex save and went prone. He still seemed upset by the fact that he let our characters do anything. But we pressed on and found the next room full to the brim with goblins and a bugbear brute. After pulling out every possible shenanigan to win that fight, and having to position while outnumbered against ranged goblins in cover, we kill enough of them that the leader runs away deeper into the cave. Out of health, spell slots, and patience, we left and headed back for another long rest. We end that session just after defeating the goblins.
Boy, bro, you are like tired today, aren't you?
No, dude, it's not even like I'm not even like tired. I don't know, when I talk a long time, I start yawning. Everything came to a head at the beginning of our next session. He does not have a car, so David and I had been giving him rides, so he would call an Uber.
Ah, dude, this fucker.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
Hannah didn't like how her character was coming out, and it had only been session 3. Rolled a new character and asked Kevin if she could use her this session. He said he was excited to see the new character, and she took that as a sign that it was okay. Things started off badly, though, when he started making passive-aggressive comments towards me. For example, when he had some mercenaries be rude to David's character, and my character said he doesn't respect them under his breath, he said, "I don't think you respect anybody." He didn't seem to like that we didn't want to deal with these rude mercenaries, and started getting mad at us as players, saying he doesn't know what to prepare since he doesn't know when we are going to change our minds about what we want from him or what characters we are going to play at a moment's notice. Hannah and David stepped out while he and I talked. I tried to explain that I did not realize that he was making a whole new story from scratch. I was under the impression you could change the setting on a module but keep the story intact, which is what I thought happened when we started doing this new campaign after the desert one. I apologized for the misunderstanding, but he did not want to drop it. David and Hannah returned, and Hannah tried to de-escalate by explaining our comments about our characters or the setting was not an attack on him, and that we felt he was possibly taking some of these things personally when they were not aimed that way at all. He decided to start accusing Hannah of being an alcoholic for having a glass of wine during the session. Then he wished someone would speak to her the way she speaks to other people, in reference to having to reschedule D&D and making new characters that we asked if we could play with. It was at that point we asked him to leave, blocked him where we could, and have not seen him since. After everything went down, Hannah found the Reddit account that we had originally met him through and found a post in a Critical Role sub that sounded oddly familiar. It started by accusing everyone in that sub of not liking the show at all and having no respect for the Critical Role team, because there were people that were posting criticism of some of the actions of the characters or storyline in Campaign 3. This was, we found out through the comments on the post, one of the Critical Role subs that were formed because negative or critical posts on the main sub often get deleted or locked. So we had gone to this sub specifically created for that reason and decided that they were all being too negative and not respecting Critical Role the way they deserve. Weird behavior in general, but it lined up perfectly with his comments about respecting his time, which he had talked about a lot more than I mentioned here, and his inability to hear feedback on how we could have enjoyed the game more. This has not soured our taste for D&D. It reinvigorated David's love for DMing, and we are finally getting that classic adventure we were hoping to finally start.
Oh boy, what a journey! Oh boy. Well, I'll just say off the top, Kevin's got a lot of shit going on. Kevin, he's got some stuff, don't he? Boy. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this one, Sammy?
Yeah, so obviously there's a bit of a growing pain situation with the fact that these people are fairly new.
They're brand new.
Hobby. What I will say is, look, I don't think that necessarily using the Critical Role setting book is a bad starter.
No.
Unless you're trying to recreate what they did in Critical Role, then it's bad. But if you're just using the setting, I think it's fine.
I mean, Xander's a great setting.
They put a lot of, like, Tal'Dorei and all of these places that Matt Mercer wrote and created. He put a lot of time into it.
Yeah.
You could argue a very, very good amount of time in comparison to any of the other modules and things that you would find for 5th edition. Obviously, it suffers from specifically his writing style. So it might, for some people, they're just not going to enjoy it. I have friends who, we've been playing D&D for a very long time, and I still can't get them to even try listening to Critical Role because it's been so sensationalized and it's someone else's story. So they're like, well, that's not really, I don't care about someone else's story. Or it's like just too big for them, and I get that.
It's like trying to get people to watch One Piece or whatever. It's like, there's too many episodes.
Well, oddly, my friend who tries to get everyone to watch One Piece won't watch Critical Role, but he's very much enjoyed the Adventure Zone. So it's very straight. Well, Adventure Zone, it's more funny and less to the rules.
mean, it's less serious, and it is much more just about the story and, like,
And it's also a small group with people who don't know what they're doing. So I get it.
Don't care more so at this point.
Yeah, but they also just don't know. Yeah.
I mean, they probably know at this point. It's been years, but it's like they don't care.
Travis didn't.
They just,
graduation was terrible. Travis didn't.
Yeah, no, graduation was not.
It is by far the worst thing they've ever made. But
not the best.
Either way, I get it. I get being apprehensive, especially of the Critical Role stuff. Me personally, I've never ran anything in Tal'Dorei or in Exandria or any of that. I have used the subclasses. I've used some of the items.
Some of the monsters are pretty cool,
because it's fun and it's fantasy and there's nothing wrong with that.
Who doesn't love flying sky ships?
I want more. Like, it's cool.
Sky ships. It's magic.
I get it. What I do want to say, I really do not like
the classic D&D experience.
Now, if you want to go for a beer and pretzels game where you start in a tavern, kill a dragon, save a princess, that's fine.
Nothing wrong with that.
And you know what? There can be a lot of enjoyment in stuff like that. It's simple. It's straightforward.
It gets the job done,
There's no mystery. There's no intrigue. It is just, this is the task set before you.
And you
become the heroes you want to be. And then what I would say is, once you do that, then you can take those characters and branch off into more, complicated problems. But, there's also something to be said that, killing the dragon, saving the day, even on a grandiose scale, works really well. You look at Critical Role Campaign 1.
I mean, they did it really well. That. I love that. The Chroma Conclave is still still one of the best iterations.
It's one of the coolest ways to do that.
It really is. It was so well done. I got to give Matt credit. Again, even in the first campaign, it's got plenty of its problems and stuff, but I still hold fast that, I like campaign one the most out of all of them so far.
That's because it captured something that I don't think you can't capture it again.
Yeah. I mean, campaign 3 is doing all right too, honestly. Campaign 3, I think, actually
almost
doing
done with 2
pretty well. I actually have been enjoying campaign 3. There have been some very interesting aspects that they've incorporated. So I didn't like 2. I didn't like campaign 2.
I'm almost done with it. I'm kind of at the point where I kind of skip between some of the fights because I just want to see what happens to the characters.
Yeah.
Which sucks, but I just don't have the time. I don't have the patience anymore.
Yeah, understandable.
But the reality is like the continual. I want this classic D&D experience. No offense, Curse of Strahd is classic D&D experience. Like, no offense, what do you think they played in AD days and first edition?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it depends on what you're trying to like really identify as a so-called. Dude, like, I assume he's trying to. They're referring to being like, oh yeah, like Sam just said, it's that the fairy tale, quintessential fairy tale experience, hero's journey kind of thing.
I think I'm going to use this as an example. It's an adventure that I took from second edition that I have run in 5th edition for people before. And it is what is it? Something Meanlock adventure. Fuck.
The Meanlock.
It is
I think I know what you're talking about.
I found it, I think. Escape from Meanlock Prison.
Ooh.
Okay. So in this adventure, there's a hook that there's it's a vineyard that also doubles as a prison, using prisoners to work on the vineyard. There are guards, and something happens in the prison. There's some sort of escape, and basically a merchant goes to pick up wine and basically gets told to fuck off. And this vineyard had to deal with this merchant forever, so he goes back to town and tells the local adventuring guild about it. And this then leads your group, who works for the local adventurers guild. There is no explanation of how you got there. You all know each other. There's none of the how'd you all meet? None of it, right? Because this is not what it's meant to be. It came out in a magazine in the 90s. Yep. Like, this is how this used to happen. And it's great because you go to this manor, and the beginning of it is there are set things you might notice depending on what types of characters you brought. Now, some of those things, I ran it very loosey-goosey. I did a lot of it. I changed stuff and did it myself. But baseline is each of the guards that you run into has specific things you can notice that maybe would lead them to believe that they're not actually guards.
Yep.
The head of the vineyard is kept in a constant, completely hammered state by the guards, so that he just doesn't even know what's going on.
Yeah, he's
and the whole concept is that the prison was broken into by these little fey beings called Meanlocks. And I love Meanlocks. You do not see them anymore. They have been changed because they used to be, I believe, fiends or aberrations. Now they are considered fey. But there's this really cool thing Meanlocks can do. And that's when you get more than one Meanlock, they can stun lock you.
Yeah.
And over the course of 3 to 5 days, turn you into a Meanlock.
Turn into a Meanlock, yeah. Permanently. I mean, they have you can encounter them in Baldur's Gate 3 as well,
yeah, which I didn't even know that was I didn't even know that was there until I recently was playing a tactician run with a buddy of mine, and I found them down there, and I was like, "Are those Meanlocks?" And they're like, "What are those?" And I'm like, "Oh."
And they can do the thing down there too.
They can do a couple things.
If you're not careful, they can
teleport from shadow to shadow.
Yep.
They can paralyze you.
Yep.
With their claws.
And then they crit you.
Yeah, after they paralyze you.
Yeah, so every attack.
They are low-level monsters that are not dangerous alone, very dangerous
together. They're exceedingly dangerous together. If you have enough of them, even high-level parties, if they just roll badly and you don't deal with them quick enough, you are in very big trouble.
What is it? Shadows?
Yeah. Shadows are the same
thing.
They're
not that scary if there's one of them, but you get a group of them together, even a high-level adventurer can go down pretty quickly.
Yeah, if you just roll bad. If it's just bad luck.
That's the kind of the idea of the module, is like the first part is the mystery of figuring out what the hell's going on. And then the second part is either you convince the felons to help you, you kill the felons, you imprison the felons in some sort of ramshackle prison, because the moment you try to go down there, bad things happen.
Yeah.
But like, this is a simple adventure. I would argue pretty classic D&D. There's a problem. You have to go figure out the problem, and then you got to figure out what the solution to that problem is. It's very straightforward, with a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of mystery.
It just
a little
mixes
bit of having to
all
look
the
around.
nice stuff together. You know, it's all nice. The 3 pillars, baby. 3 pillars.
Yeah, it's all of them. And so to me, that is an example of a classic D&D experience. Some would say, well, there's intrigue and there's mystery, and I don't know about that. I don't want to think about my D&D.
I just want to go and roll dice and hit things.
And that's fine, but just go do an arena. Like,
yeah.
go do a gladiatory arena where it's your players against NPCs that you create, and just do that. But like, I don't understand this whole, like, I want a classic D&D experience. Curse of Strahd is a classic D&D experience.
It is. It's
old.
like it's
well
the classic D&D
difficult.
experience. Like,
it is. The DM is at the whim of where you want to go.
I mean, they want it to be more whimsical and colorful and fan. Like, okay, try, you know, Witchlight Carnival maybe. I don't know.
No, send them to Avernus. Fucking put them in Out of the Abyss. You want a colorful adventure? I'm running Out of the Abyss. That's pretty colorful.
Is it now? Oh yeah, all the darkness and the purple and the black and the gray. Yeah,
and the walls made out of worms and the madness and the
very
dust
colorful for sure.
And the murderous bugs and weird shit that comes out of the walls and tries to eat you. Yeah,
like OP. I will say, like OP. Like I respect the fact that you seem to be very reasonable and accommodating and calm throughout all of this. Like, again, you guys are brand new. I will say, yeah, like I don't, again, just my personal opinion and thoughts. Like, again, I don't think you should do the thing of like trying to bring your previous character over to a new campaign unless you're going to, again, as we've said to me, I love to do that too. Like, I love my characters as well. You get attached to them, but you gotta acclimate them and adjust them for the campaign you're putting them in. They can't go about it like, you know, the multiverse theory where it's, you know, maybe they're the same character or whatever, but you know, their experiences are a bit different and whatever because of just the multiverse. There's certain changes or whatever happen. It's never a good idea to bring like a pre-existing character to a different campaign and then try to justify the pre-existing like knowledge or things from like usually it's not a good idea. Just make it from scratch. Again, bring them in if you want to play that class, that character, have a story for them, but do it here. I think that's another thing that contributed to, like, you guys seem to have just a very specific idea of what you were trying to do. But you weren't also clear about it though either. Like you were like, we want a very, you know, want that classic D&D experience with this thing, but then you were like, but we don't really know what that means or looks like. And it's like, well, all right, that becomes a bit difficult to do it both ways. This guy was definitely not the one to do it because Kevin has a lot of personal mental issues going on for certain. Like, clearly exceedingly self-deprecating, probably depressed. Just he was clearly throughout this whole thing just looking, I assume he wanted to win. He had a huge DM versus player mentality, and I think this is a way for him to maybe feel validated, to feel like he could be a winner and a victor, to have more control over things because he doesn't have that in his life. And I mean, hell, the fact he wouldn't even help you guys make a puzzle and he has 5 different puzzles. Like, he probably had maybe at one time he thought, hey, this could be a thing I could do with friends, and then he gave that up, and he's a mess. He's a bit of a mess, you know. And I'm not saying that judgmental way, ironically, but I think he has some legitimate issues and problems that he's just not really handling well. Because his communication skills too. Someone down here also says, like the top voted comment, which I think was really great. Kevin seems addicted to conflict and finding reason to feel offended by people. Many people don't like to feel like victims, but if you already don't have a lot going on for you or for you, I'm surrounded by bastards punching down on me can feel a lot better than I'm the cause of my own problems. Puzzle Knight seems to suggest that he default to the latter if he can't find someone to project his grievances onto. Like, I think that's, yes, very beautifully put. Where when a person kind of gets stuck in a bit of a rut, especially if they got a bit of a depression thing going on too, like I definitely get that. I also kind of suffer a bit from that myself. I'm a bit genetically predisposed to that, but you know, it can definitely feel for a lot of people, you know, better to try and constantly put the blame on the situation or scenario or the responsibility onto other things, or to project it externally outward rather than taking a moment to reflect on yourself, what you might be doing wrong or what you might be able to change or shift or grow to fix the situation. It's hard for people to take responsibility for themselves in their own life. It's difficult because they're just like, and to be fair, there are absolutely situations and scenarios where, yeah, a lot of shit is stacked against you. You don't have a lot of the same opportunities or resources or whatever else to support to be able to, maybe fairly or reasonably have expectations of achieving what you might want to. But even with that, you still gotta keep trying your best, and you gotta take responsibility for what you are responsible for, reasonably, of course. Whereas don't take more in than is actually fair to you. But also, especially don't try to just constantly project and throw the blame or responsibility on everything and everyone else. But overall, OP, I hope you guys are finally really having fun. It seems like you are, since David seems to love it, and you're getting that classic D&D adventure you're hoping for. So whatever that means for you, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're having a good time with that. All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to, I believe, probably the last story for today, and then we got to get out of here. This story is titled The Bench Warmer Marines, a Traveler Horror Story. Now, this story is actually originally posted in r/homebrew fever dreams, but was then reposted into r/RPG horror stories, or shared into r/RPG horror stories. It looks quite interesting. So let's get into it. This is by Artman So, although I don't know for sure if he's the original poster or if he also just was reposting it, but either way, I think he might be. So, I was in what was to be an 8-hour con game with 6 players and a ref. 4 of us, myself included, were 20-something-year-olds who were more familiar with Mongoose 2E than the classic Traveler, I think, that we were playing. I'm actually not familiar with any of these, so personally. The other 2 were moderately experienced, and the GM looked to have been playing since the 80s at least. Damn. The youngest, I can guess, was in their 50s, and the oldest was in their 70s. Holy shit! Jesus! We're talking about... Good Lord. All right, we did a quick and dirty character creation, giving several skill points, with one being the highest was a 3, and more money than we knew what to do with. At least as younger players, anyway. The older players, let's call new pilot and co-pilot, had designed the ship before the game had even started. They had funds left over for the ship and got all of us comm implants, which wasn't needed, but it did save money on weapons, gear, and battle dress/combat armor. Me and the other players brainstormed that we were a former Marine squid reassigned... Squid? Maybe meant to say squad? Former Marine... squad. Let me know down in the comments. Is squid an actual term for that or not? I'm not entirely sure. It could be. Former Marine squad reassigned to add Imperial intelligence. Me as the combat medic and general support monkey, a tech-based infiltrator and sniper, a call cell. I don't know. A call cell, a heavy weapon specialist. Let's just call him Heavy. And finally, Commando and unofficial leader of our Spec Ops squad. Pilot and co-pilot just looked at us like we were weird, even more so when we asked if they wanted to tie characters' backgrounds together. The game starts, and before the briefing even begins, P and Co-P just announced they're not going to the meeting and going to get some things prepped for the mission. They tell us to go in their place as they can listen in with the implants we have. Oh, shit. That already is such a huge fucking flag, bro. They're literally going to still be part of the thing without actually being part of the thing. The task was pretty straightforward. One of the Emperor's invests a few diamond mines, or investments of a few diamond mines. This is not, well, was endangered due to a rebellion backed by a rival government the Third Imperial was in a cold war with. They suspect the revolution has repaired an abandoned mech and got a drone brain to operate multiple androids hidden in plain sight. An informant has popped up and is willing to point out the rebellion's leaders in exchange for protection and not getting killed. We needed to find the leaders for capture or elimination, take out the mech, and recover the brain for intel on who was backing the resistance. We asked our questions. Okay, he said ARE. We asked our questions, did some brainstorming, and some gear requests. We were off to complete our mission. We met co-pilot and pilot at the ship as they said over the comms they already grabbed the gear and then some. First off was the mech. We had come up with some trails we could take from local maps to sneak in. We would then land the ship, sneak up to the mech, plant charges, and book it back to the ship. The pilots had other ideas. They had gotten a portable launcher with EMP missiles from the Navy. They planned to do a flyby attack of the mech, frying it to be useless without risking of detection or injury. This is difficult to get through. The squid heavy started moving to grab the launcher, and again, squid. He says squid again. So is it squid or is it supposed to be squad? The heavy started moving to grab the launcher and called over the ranger to help spot for him, but was told to drop it. The pilot and co-pilot had built a combat drone with combat skills on average of 4 or 5 in every known form of combat. Good Lord. It didn't even need a spotter or second to hold the rocket launcher as it succeeded in hitting and crippling the mech. Heavy looked disappointed, but hey, it's still the beginning of an 8-hour game and chances for combat should still be pretty prolific, right? The second objective was to try to find the informant, and we started brainstorming what town he was likely in from the info given to us by their last transmission and the Navy's profile of the turncoat. We, the Marines, as a party, were looking over maps in the library on the ship. We were going to start making calls to hostels as, is it hostel or hotel? Yeah, hostels, yeah. They were the last one seen at. The pilots hacked the planet network and find the informant's credit trail to a small farming town, 100 or so, where an inn and pub were. They dropped us off with a field radio about 100 or so yards from the town as we walked in. With our
Civ gear.
He misspelled
they
our
can't
again.
spell.
Yeah, with our Civ gear on. Heavy and Commando were interacting with the patrons, scanning for the informant, while Medic me, I assume English isn't their first language. That's okay. While Medic me and Ranger bribed a maid for the room number and broke into his basement room. Me and Ranger found a data pad and were going to make the attempt when the pad instantly unlocked itself. The P and Co-P had remotely hacked the data pad with the field radio and our implants. Fuck me, dude. Jesus Christ. Literally, they're gonna be present without being present. That is that shit would drive me up a wall. They had even started to download the files off of the damn thing as the ref handed P and Co-P the handouts. And the ref just lets it happen, okay? Meanwhile, Heavy and Commando were at the bar, spying on the informant with a hooded figure, talking about the rebellion's original goal of getting workers' rights and if they lost their way. The pair would approve the shadowy figure and the informant when the P's ordered them into the basement with me and the Ranger. They asked why, but the P's refused to elaborate, even when me and the Ranger asked out of character, for as far as we know, they are on the right track. The ref had to step in and ask/told them to do what they say, as he had a good idea of what the pilots had in store, seemingly confirmed by a note from the P's. Commando and Heavy reluctantly did so. As soon as they met us, the building began to shake as explosions were heard above us. We surprisingly gained limited injuries as we got our combat lights going, looked for survivors, and tried to find a way out. We found the cleaner that we bribed and another renter in some of the surviving rooms and found a cellar door, but blocked by debris. We radioed the P's that we survived whatever attacked us and were blowing a hole open by the blocked cellar door. As soon as we confirmed where we were, the pilot's robots ripped the doors off the cellar, debris and all, before the Heavy can press the trigger to shoot the gun. We got the civilians topside, only to be met with their town fully engraved in flame and wholly leveled. The ref was starting to describe how the survivors react when the pilots order the drones to vaporize the survivors. A few moments later, the pilots walked out of the ship as we, the Marines, wondered out loud what that was for. The pilots got all the info they needed from the data pad and figured it would be safer to just blow up the town just in case any more possible rebellion leaders were in the area. A village of about 100 people who actively were not a part of any faction on the planet, mind you. We asked why gunning down the survivors and blowing up the town with us still inside. Jesus. Okay. We asked why they decided to gun down the survivors and blow up the town with us still inside of it. We got back. We can't have witnesses to this massacre. This is the fastest, most effective method of completing the mission. And we didn't target the building directly. It was all secondary damage. Before just walking back onto the ship and telling us to get back on, we begrudgingly followed, some of us wondering out of the game if there were some poor souls just trapped under the rubble and debris. Rebel. The pilots have... The pilots responded by telling the ref they were going to unleash the cloud of some bioweapon to make sure that no one trapped survived, or if anyone that were missed in the bombardments would die from exposure trying to save the loved ones. We were shocked and pissed at a display of blatant murder and lack of roleplay as we started heading to the final objectives of the game. The drone brain and hiding rebel leaders. Jesus, this is so hard. Holy shit. This is like Olympic level having to try to repiece this together. Okay. I tried to get things back on track by asking if I can do first aid rolls, but the pilots ordered the drones to do it for me. Fuck me. Jesus. Why? They're not letting any of them even play. The ref shortly after letting this happen as they were coming up with the better ideas before he called an hour break. An hour break? Jeez.
Well, they played for 8 hours.
That's true. We asked the pilots and the ref if they wanted to come get food with us, but they declined as they got to talking to themselves again, pulling out sandwiches. They are, oh man. My fellow Marines and I walked to a local Mexican restaurant, talking the shit, roughly confirming roles for the raid, and asking each other if anyone was having fun. Each of us said it's been disappointing so far as between the four of us, only 2 or 3 roles have been made at all. Ranger hasn't been that stealthy or hacked anything. Heavy hasn't blown anything up, and I have been out-supported, and the commando did find the effectiveness of the pilots fascinating. However, it doesn't like just being sidelined. We talked and decided to come back early to try to air out the lack of control and getting interrupted by the pilots. As we came in, the pilots stopped whatever they were talking about with the ref and pointed at us. We opened up with how we are not having fun getting interrupted when we try to do checks and it kind of feels like we are background characters. The ref said that he's sorry that you feel that way, as he thans to go by. I don't even know what he's trying to say. As he says to go by whoever presents the best idea at the time. That us being so new to this edition makes it hard to do. This was advertised as a beginner-friendly game, and most of what we know about our actions were a poorly printed quick reference we had to share and with our phones. Fuck me. Also, we had asked for the handouts from the data pad around the time they bombed us and were told by the pilots it would be unoptimal. We found that demeaning, and the best idea getting a chance to be rolled kind of added to this annoying. Oh my goodness. The ref reiterated again that the best idea was just his style, but willing to try to compromise. Why does he assume that that's the best idea? Like, again, does this guy know them? Like, what? Like, he also pointed out the following encounter would be best suited for our talents. We desire to give the game another chance as we get combat gear on, combat dress, high-grade explosives, and enough guns to overthrow a small country. The drone EMP the area, but there was still enough life signs that pointed out by the ref that a ground assault alone would be a tough fight. We were ready for this, and we wanted this to be glorious. We hopped off the starship by zipping and hit the ground running into the action. A few machine gun nests were set up in one of the adjacent buildings to where the brain was. Heavy said he would take care of it. He leveled a rocket launcher at the foundation, and before he could press the trigger, a volley of missiles blow up the building. While the party was dumbfounded, the Rangers spotted some snipers from the roof of the objective and went to counter-snipe when point lasers took them out. One of us, Heavy I think, verbally went, "What the actual F?" From what I can recall, the pilots and robots beat our roles and were holding actions. Jesus. They're literally not even letting them play the. This is going to be 8 hours of them just not playing the game. At this point, we rush to the building, kick down the door. Commando yells to drop weapons and lay on the ground to be captured. They don't and get hurled out in bags. This is one of the few rolls we could make, and it was dual sixes. The rebel fighters and tech support dropped to the ground. We felt the first bit of accomplishment all game as we went to handcuff the future POWs to get info from when we heard the skylight break. 5 or so combat robots landed on anyone they could, killing them from the drop, and whoever was left got their heads stumped or kicked to death. We're asking why they would kill unarmed fighters, or at least not bother to interrogate them. We just got back computers don't lie, and that the brain is the only objective. One of us asked passive-aggressively out loud why they needed us, as they seemed to be able to do everything just fine. They replied that we needed to pack up the computer room and get it onto the ship. When we asked why the robots couldn't do that part, well, from either the first bit of roleplay we heard from them or just the actual opinion of us, they told us that the robots were worth more than us and didn't want them breaking for no good reason. Oh, that's phenomenal. That's goddamn phenomenal. Honestly, at this point, I would get back on the ship. I would take all the firepower that Heavy has or wherever else, and I would just detonate. I would just pull the pins out of every grenade. I would press the buttons. I would fire the rocket launcher just in the ship itself. I would just destroy the entire ship just out of pure spite for that. Like, I would just be like, all right, fuck it. I'll show you how useless I really am. We did what we were told, but tried looking over the data ourselves when we could see if we could figure out where the leaders of the rebellion were hiding, as the pilots had made clear that they were not interested in sharing any information with us lowly minions and just want us to follow orders. Seeing how the session has been going so far, they're likely to drop nukes and call it a day, then waste time trying to do a thorough investigation. We didn't want this to become a murder hobo fest for the next 4 hours. I don't know how it could, because if they just do that, they're so efficient, you guys can leave early, I would assume. Luckily for us, that didn't happen over 4 hours. Instead, it happened over 4 minutes. There you go. So that's what I'm saying. We watched as mushroom clouds appeared over the horizon of the target cities of the colony. Listened to outgoing SOS signals as people trying to flee by spacecraft were shut down by Imperial fighters, and anyone trying to flee by land or sea getting intercepted by bombers. He rushes the ship, thinking that the masterminds had hijacked the cruiser or something, but the pilots explained that it was all a part of the plan. At the beginning of the session, while we were attending the meeting, they broke into the captain's quarters and got blackmail on the fleet captain. Apparently, he was cheating on his wife, a powerful duchess with a minor duke of a rival house. This would not be grounds, this would not be grounds for a very messy divorce and a behavior unfitting of an, or I think maybe it would be. This would be grounds for a very messy divorce and a behavior unfitting of an official or of an officer court-martial. Holy shit. This would be grounds for a very messy divorce and behavior unfitting of an officer of the court who could be court-martialed, but an automatic dishonorable discharge for being gay in the military, because even in the far future, don't ask, don't tell is still sound. I still don't think I was able to make that sentence make entire sense. Either way, using this blackmail material, they convinced the captain to carpet bomb the general areas of all the leaders they could approximate from the data. The GM, described as hundreds of thousands, are wiped out instantaneously by nuclear hellfire. However, confirming the death of the rebellion, their job well done for Imperial intelligence top agents despite some disruptions from the hired help, and ending the session. Holy shit. At least the session, for our involvement in it, as it turns out, I don't know what he's trying to say. At least the session, for our involvement in it, as it turns out, the GM and pilot players were planning on having the game in short so they can have the room to themselves without having to pay total price for a convention ticket. Holy shit, dude. I knew it. They were all in on it together. They just, wow. The characters were much more skilled, geared up, and powerful than we were. We were just NPCs to be used and discarded. They wasted 4 hours of our lives for this, and 2 of which wasn't even game time. All of us would have to wait a minimum of 8 hours to gain into another game, or because it was ran on a gap. The GM stated that we can go now, as they had done the bare minimum to get in for free and we were no longer needed. It's fucking crazy. We as a group, either through frustration or some desperation to get some enjoyment out of this experience, told the GM we insisted that we continue. No, we're going to attempt to arrest the psychopaths we have been committing psychopaths that have been committing war crimes throughout the day and stop demoralizing from being losted. What are you saying? We are going to attempt to arrest the psychopaths that have been committing war crimes throughout the day, and we stop to moralize from being, I don't know what he's trying to say with the last part, was what the commando yelled out as we got ready for a fight. The pilots just pull out data pads and press the buttons as the referee describes how all our heads explode. Obviously. The pilots just pull out data, the implants that they gave us had microbombs hidden in them. So if we got out of line, they could execute us at any time with a simple push of a button. They went back to playing their proper session as we went to the convention organizers to complain about this. As far as I can tell, they have never showed up at this convention again, but then again, COVID has also been a factor. TLDR, 2 min-max murder hobos took control of a game, used the other 4 party members as minions to bypass most of the mission with brutal efficiency, and then killed us so we could stop at a convenient time. That's not what he said, but we go to complain to the organizers when it was clear that this was just a way for them to get a table and entry into the convention for free. Holy shit, dude. That was brutal.
That was terribly written.
That was brutal to get through. They were like, I'm usually pretty decent at being able to just like ad lib or like improv what they're probably trying to say, but not even I could like. There were some sentences I was just like, I can't even tell. I can't even tell what he's actually trying to convey, really. I'm gonna assume that this is not English is not their native language, and they might not be very fluent or proficient in writing it. But either way, I will say, OP, that is a hell of a story. God damn. Like, yeah, I don't even know how it's possible. These guys were still playing this game in their 50s to 80s? Holy shit, dude. The freaking ref too was also in on it the whole time. Like,
they definitely knew each other before this.
Yeah, 100%. Well, clearly it's like they were engineering to why come to a con? Why come to a convention to basically just play with the 3 of you anyway by yourself? Why just do that at your house? What was the point of any of this?
It's a weird one.
Like, I don't even get why they did it. It seems completely ridiculous. Like if you guys if you didn't want to play with anybody else, if you wanted to just do your own thing, why did you like? Did you also want like convenience of being at the con? Of like, hey, like if you get a free room at the con, do you get like a badge that allows you to like get entry or something? Is that it? Like, I want to know what was the motivation for this. If you want to just play by yourselves anyway, what was the motivation for coming to the con at all? Like, there has to be some kind of perk, right? You have to get some kind of perk for doing it. Otherwise, it's like, just play by yourselves. They literally, I mean, at least they didn't have to go for the full 8 hours, which is nice, but they literally for 4 whole hours, like they said, like they didn't let them play the game. And even worse, like the others just went along with it. They were just like, hey, we got you these implants. It's like, do you have these implants too? Yeah. No. The premise alone, them literally being like, yeah, we're not going to go with you, but we're still going to be with you and hear everything that you hear with your implants, but we're not going to be with you guys. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. If you're not going to come and participate, you do not get to be present, or it's just arbitrarily interject whenever you want. Fuck that. No. Like, come on, man. Like that, I don't know. Like, again, these guys, they might be new to this particular like system, but I don't think they're new to TTRPGs. No, so I I don't understand why they all took this. Like, this wasn't effective. This is them literally just being murder hobos. Like, they were just being assholes, bro.
Well,
I
the
hate
moment,
this.
like the second or third time that they just went over my head to go do something, despite that I asked to do it first, and the DM just like shrugged his shoulders and was like, "Sure," is when I leave the table, because like I'm not here to get my time wasted either. It's an 8 hour session. Like, go fuck yourself.
Like, absolutely not. Again, I would have probably just out of spite and rage, I would have just been like, okay, I'm going to take all of my firepower or all of Heavy's firepower that he has. I'm going to go on the ship. I'm going to head to like the fuel cells or the fusion core, whatever the hell powers this thing. And I'm going to instantly detonate everything in that room. I'm not going to let them know about it. I'm not going to let them whatever. Their implants, I said that they can hear things. Well, too bad. They can't see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to blow everything up.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy.
I'm gonna take everything. I'm gonna ruin their whole shit because they were actively ruining mine. So you know what? Turnabout's fair play. I don't know, bro. This is just like, yeah. Honestly, you should have just gone to the event organizers right away. Like, with the way that this was happening, the way this was going, all the shit that was going on, like I would have probably talked to somebody right away. I would have just tried to absolutely detonate and implode the game out of spite. And then I would have gone to talk to the organizers like, hey, these guys are terrible, horrible, selfish douchebags who are trying to basically just gank the system for their own personal convenience. I'm not entirely even sure why, because I don't know what perks they get, but they're doing it. So you should probably get on that. Yeah, these guys are absolutely deplorable. And these niggas are in their fucking 50s to 70s to 80s. They've been playing this game for how long again exactly? They're this old? And like, who the hell let them out of their fucking retirement home? How are they coming to a convention at this age? Not that you can't. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying, like, again, why don't you just play at your freaking retirement home, Grandpa? Like y'all want to do your own shit, your own thing anyway. Just stay there. Just, God. There was a lot about this story. This was a goddamn Olympic level feat for me to read through, and then on top of that, like, these guys are just absolute assholes. This is a true horror story for sure. Holy shit. I don't know. I just don't know how people can be like this, man. God damn. I mean,
are you really that surprised?
I'm not like at 80 years old, a little bit. Like at 80 years old, I'm like, don't you have anything better to do than be a douchebag for the last 5 minutes of your life? Like, like,
not a lot of them.
Nah, maybe, you know what? Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they just don't give a fuck anymore. And they're just gonna do whatever the fuck they want. So you know what? All right, sure. I guess. Maybe. Whatever.
I would argue no. Most people wouldn't.
Holy shit. All right. Anything else you got on this one, Sammy?
No, I think this is good. If I got to be honest, I again, I don't understand. I know the only problem here, right? The hard bit is I get that they were there for something, so like leaving or just being like fuck it would be a lot harder. But man, that sucks.
Yeah.
So much.
That is legitimately one of the most horrendous stories I've ever heard. Literally. That sucks. That, like, there's no other way. Like, that just straight sucks. Hardcore. Just rotten eggs. Oh my God. That is so shitty. Like, again, I'm not usually one to be so petty, but for this, I would be. I would be the pettiest bitch ever. I would do everything in my power to ruin this for them, because this is just egregious in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh my good golly gore. Okay. You know what? I think we got time for one more. Let's do the one more here, and then we'll head out. Go ahead and take it away, Sammy.
Which one would that be?
My group forced my character to die.
Okay. Let me find this real fast.
Let's just really quick. Let's just try to maybe wash our palate just a little bit here.
Oh yeah, no, you're not gonna get that one, bud.
Ah,
This is also a
fuck.
Warhammer. This is a Warhammer 2E.
Oh
Don't worry, it's
no.
fantasy, not 40K. Which is why I picked it because I know about fantasy Warhammer.
I like 40K too, but Jesus.
I prefer fantasy personally, but
Fantasy is a lot of fun.
yeah, my group forced my character to quote die quote. I kind of feel sorry for the loss of my favorite character in this story, especially since it's one that has lived through 3 campaigns that either ended midway or got killed by RPG trolls. We played a Warhammer 2E homebrew campaign set in a part of the world where the power of the Empire was very weak. Fantastic setup for a campaign filled to the brim with cults and weird wonders. The group consisted of me, um, playing a priest of Myrmidia, basically a battle cleric. Weird choice in a weak Empire campaign. Named Tristan, a gnome vampire hunter named Jan, a human bard named Lorco, and a Croxagore lizardman, which is redundant because they're just Croxagores, named Akalan, and a mutant Norsican warrior whose name I do not remember, but I will refer to him simply as Norseman. So basically a chaos. Okay. The campaign was going smoothly until we got to a point where we had to kidnap a vampire huntress since we sided with the cult of Slanesh
Oh
and they wanted to do
God.
something with her.
Oh, something.
The
Yeah.
problem was that when we apprehended her, Norseman put a bag on her face and carried her basically like a bag of potatoes. My character couldn't allow that, since my goddess forbid treating captives so poorly. Tristan tried to talk him into at least cutting holes in the bag so she could normally breathe and carry her over the shoulder. Norseman said, "No, we don't have time for this," and started running. I was
Hey, we
risking by
got
his
more interesting
actions.
typos.
Basically, his actions risked the wrath of my god, which basically could make me useless for more than a session or worse. Especially since my DM heavily focused on all the mechanics like chaos manifestations, curse of Zinch, etc. Or Zinch, sorry. He had many tables with worse effects than in the core book. So Tristan stopped the Norseman and tried to warn him that if he won't stop, then he'll be forced to aid the prisoner by force. To which the Norseman responded by transforming into a were-lion. The battle begins. My cleric was vastly overpowering the Norseman because of a holy spear that he had from one of my previous characters dying a hero's death, which I'm going to explain later. Every attack that he managed to score, my character parried. The rest of the party joined the fight on the Norseman's side. The DM started to roll for something, and suddenly reinforcements arrived. Vampire hunters stopped the party from intervening the fight between the priest and the mutant, holding the party at gunpoint. Everyone except for Ackland was tired because that was the second. What? As referred to by the bard. Oh yeah. So they claimed his character was an imposter character. Um, this is where I introduced my previous character, which was basically an accountant with one mission: spy for the Empire. Nothing too excessive. Just once a week, give a letter to an informant about what you know, and you get the sweet, sweet money and land to manage. During one session, we managed to infiltrate the cult of Slanesh and stood in front of their leader. My character believed in the tenets of the Empire very zealously, so everything that the cult leader would say would be declined and denied by him. The leader presented the party with an ultimatum: join us or die. My character chose the latter, but in a very smart way, especially since the cult leader was a keeper of secrets of Slanesh. He began to run to the closest balcony and threw his notebook with everything he noted up to this point to his horse, which he taught on command to go to the informant and pass the information, if he couldn't, and also to pass the informations to his closest friend Tristan, the priest of Myrmidia, giving my next character a reason to be with the group. Then he killed himself by taking a shot to the head to not be tainted by Slanesh, choosing his own way out. GM, of course, asked me whether I want to even use. I guess they have PowerPoints basically that make you not die immediately when you reach 0. I quickly denied, said to him that even if you forced me to use them, my character would repeat the process. GM agreed on my decision. It was by my choice to kill that character off, and it was a very satisfying act of heroic sacrifice, which was rewarded for my next character with a spear that gave a huge bonus to rolls on parry. So, this guy played a character that was not with the party once, and now they're claiming he's doing it again, which, in my opinion, knowing what I know about Warhammer Fantasy, why are you playing a battle cleric in this? Like, no offense, but they're not going to be along the lines of a Norseman or
I mean,
a man from a Viking from Norsica, ostensibly that is tainted with chaos, because that's what mutants are. A what were the other ones?
Croxagore,
A
Human Bard,
Croxagore,
Gnome Vampire Hunter.
Technically, the Lizardmen are part of the Order faction and are not cool with the Chaos and Corruption.
I mean, I was
But
gonna say
Bard, a Vampire Hunter, a Mutant Norsican, and a Croxagore. Like, I just don't understand why you're playing a battle cleric in this. If in a weak Empire campaign where the entire party is with Slaanesh,
I was going to say like
they've joined a cult of Slaanesh.
That is the biggest like issue and whole like conflict
but
here.
hey,
you're
the GM let
a
it happen
with a different god, but why would the GM let it happen? You have a different god whose whole thing is literally more so about being, you know, order and, you know, paragons and having
good gods.
Yeah, benevolence. Slaanesh is like one of the most just debased, deplorable chaos. Like
Slaanesh if you're part of a chaos sex demon,
literally, and like you're just like, how would your character ever be able to get with the party in this regard? They're clearly playing a more evil campaign. Why are you? What? Like, yes, like, oh my god, that right away just doesn't make any sense to me. It completely blew my mind. I was like,
so here's this next bit that I don't quite.
And they're gonna do it again. You're gonna do it again.
Yeah, coming back to the situation, my party was tired of having imposters in the party. Sadly, they didn't understand that the priest was not an imposter. He was there to help them, but he can't break his oath. He only wanted to take revenge on the cult leader, which is one of the ways to gain power in the land, which was also a way to win the campaign. As I learned later after talking with the GM. So he wasn't there to
Nope.
I don't understand.
He was there to
betray them. He said he wasn't going to betray them, basically. My priest started to overpower the Norsemen, and that's where the problems began. The situation was not looking well, to say the least. The Norsemen's player started to get mad because he thought that my character was overpowered. As a player, I told him that I'm only going to pacify his character, not kill him. And then we can move on. If he gives up, everyone will be fine. The GM started to roll for something, and suddenly Slaaneshi cultists ambushed the vampire hunters and started killing them. The Bard joined the fight on the Norsemen's side since they were not held at gunpoint because the vampire hunters were being brutally slaughtered. Tristan could take them both since the Bard was more of a support character. The session ended there. The Norseman player cooled down and we were generally in good terms. The Lizardman player was also very impressed by the fact that regardless of the bad reactions, I stood by my character's beliefs and duties. But the rest of the party made me feel like I shouldn't play this character anymore. Maybe that's a good idea. Jan's player was also impressed, but mad at the same time, leaving me with a mixed bag of emotions. But there was the Bard, who put the last nail to Tristan's coffin. He told me that he was tired of imposter characters, and especially since it was the second in a row, that he would not feel well even if we find a solution to the situation. He would betray us later anyway. We play on the side of chaos. We are bad, and he is playing on the side of the Empire. It struck me hard. I felt really bad and said to the DM that he can do whatever he wants to my character. This felt really sour because now Tristan, my favorite character, also became a cursed character, which by the machinations of the universe is always cursed to be either in sessions that end prematurely or to die. I stopped playing with the group for the next couple of sessions. I felt really bad and couldn't pull myself together to create another character for at least 2 to 3 months. I rejoined the group later, making sure to play very bad characters. I made the following characters: a Skaven warp engineer and a chaos warrior who couldn't talk, so the Skaven was basically the one doing all the talking, which I love because I do an amazing Skaven voice impression. I'm sure you don't. I still feel bad after that situation. I do not know whether I should feel like it's my fault that I ruined the fun for the party, or whether I should stand my beliefs and by the beliefs of one of my favorite characters. After some thought, I feel like Tristan is doomed to be only in my campaigns as an NPC that will most likely die, or most likely due to how my play group sees the character being doomed to death. Edit. Post-session, I talked to my GM about the situation, and we agreed that our play group is not ready for that kind of PvP action. It was very sad for me, especially because I enjoy those moments when two characters collide and need to, at the end, agree on something or find a middle ground. Or they could at least knock my character out and try to talk it out. He would not go down without a fight. Another rule of the goddess. So,
holy fuck, dude.
Yeah, like, so I don't know exactly how the Warhammer TTRPG functions. I don't know how it works. I don't know, like, to be fair, this whole PvP interparty conflict thing could be much more common in a TTRPG from Warhammer. They're usually a bit more brutal. the lore itself is a bit more brutal and fucked up.
Warhammer is just more intense in almost every regard. Like it just is.
But
like,
and look, I just don't understand why you would bring that character in. It doesn't make sense.
Same concept as, again, in D&D, you have a good aligned party and an evil murder hobo character who's just ruining everything for the party. It's the same concept, just reversed. These guys wanted to play a more evil-based campaign.
Yeah.
Okay. Why are you ruining that then?
Yeah, like I do understand, you know, maybe his intention was different than what ended up happening, because it sounded very much like they thought this out and were like,
I don't think it was a bad intention.
My first character was an imposter. The second character isn't. They just have certain things they have to follow.
But the issue being though is that if they are so restricted by following those specific tenets of their goddess, or risk, you know, backlash or negative repercussions, you're going to constantly have a ton. So again, the question being is, what was the end game? Don't get me wrong. We and Sammy have talked about this numerous times. It is perfectly fine and even great, in fact, for two characters in the party to have some conflict, disagreements, whatever. That's okay. You work it out, like he said. But there's a huge difference between it literally leading to actual PvP combat.
Yeah, there's so many other steps that could have been taken before this.
Like, or at least for him, he says there wasn't. He's like, I had no choice. I asked him if I continue to allow this to happen without interfering, because apparently he's saying he has to intervene, or his goddess or whatever, there's going to be very intense or serious negative repercussions. So it's like, why are you playing this character with them? What do you expect? Were you trying to change them? Is that what the plan was? Because that is not how that works. If the majority of them want to play this type of campaign, that is what the campaign should be. Now, I don't necessarily agree with it either. I'm not necessarily against playing a Slaanesh maybe thing. I'm not against playing an evil campaign if that is the goal. But 100%, I'm sorry to say it, people, stop trying to bring characters that are like directly in conflict or opposition of the party. It doesn't matter if they're the evil ones and you're the good one. Don't do that. Just like you shouldn't do they're the good ones and you're the evil one or messed up one. Like, you cannot consistently start getting in the way of what the party is trying to do, and therefore they're fun.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then it's probably just not the group for you. OP. If you, again, like I said, if you ever read this, I can respect, I think, maybe what your intention was, like Sam was saying. Like, I think what you were trying to do could have been a very interesting idea. The problem is you got to kind of get everybody on board with that. If you're going to do it, you got to kind of get everybody on board, for one. It doesn't sound like this was a campaign where they were trying to do like a redemption kind of thing, where you are part of this dark cult and you do things, but then you see the light and maybe you're on a redemption tour or something. They wanted to do this thing. So you bring a character who was legitimately, apparently mechanically even, tied and restricted to functioning like almost exactly in opposition of the party for the most part. How did you think this wouldn't result in just constant conflict and therefore disruption of everything? What are you going to do? You take out, okay, let's say you win the fight against the Norskin warrior, right? You knock him out. You really think he's going to wake up and then be like, hey, all's forgiven, no hard feelings? Fuck no! He's going to start trying to kill you again. Like, what do you think? Ugh, God damn it. It's just like, I can't help but feel like you were just being very selfish here, where you are, even ironically, though, I think your intentions were good. And I also am a person, I usually prefer, more good aligned characters and stories and adventures. I'm not against bad aligned stuff if we do it. Like I'm, in fact, it can be really fun. But I understand, you're more good aligned character. You love this character, but they're not a fit for this particular campaign that's happening here. And I feel like it was just very selfish of you to just kind of put that in there and then just expect or hope everything works out fine with it. Like, especially with what they said, you literally made a character previously who was also a spy.
Yeah.
who is essentially narking or snitching on the party. And then you're gonna bring in another character who's still actively against them, like, or at least seemingly will have to be actively against them because of the tenets. Like, oh, you already betrayed the party's trust once, and then you're, oh God, I just don't. Hang on, let's see. Let's see some of the comments down here. Top voted comment goes, this sounds like a shit show in every sense of the word. Not just a shit show, one that your GM escalated every step of the way. That's not the, why the GM allowed this to happen in the first place, too. Surprise vampire hunters, surprise cultists. From the way you described the other players, they seem cool with how you played it. I don't know, maybe. A roleplay solution might have been the cards. The GM didn't insist on making the PvP resemble the cabin scene from A Night at the Opera. That'll be a cult of Zinch, a werelion, Imperial spies, vampire hunters, Slaneshi cultists, Lustrians, a warrior of chaos, and 2 hard-boiled eggs. Honk, make that 3 hard-boiled eggs. And then the dude says, you get me. OP then responds, later the party joined the cult of Zinch, as I heard. And then he goes like, again, as I saw it back then, it was either my character dies or they kill every party member because when they stand up from being unconscious, they will try again. Exactly. The only reason that vampire hunters were there was because of, as GM said, divine providence. Cultists were reasonable because they were watching every of our step. He's also still kind of typoing here. I talked to the GM after, and we agreed that just our party is not ready for that kind of PvP action. Again, nothing wrong with the PvP action, but are you going to essentially just kill every party member until they all bring new members in, where it's essentially an entirely new party, then they're not even evil anymore, they're good aligned, they're not even part of the Slaneshi cult, and like the entire story basically changes? Like, what? You're gonna do the whole like, oh hey, we're gonna refurbish this ancient ship, right? We found this ship. Oh, it's an antique, but we're gonna replace every single board, plank, wheel, or whatever with brand new materials. Is it even still the original ship anymore, or is it a completely new ship that you just replaced everything else with? Another question that we've all been asking, or that we've been asking, why in first place did you create a pro-Empire character when the whole party is pro-Chaos? If I understood that correctly. Also, such things are better resolved out of character than in character. You were on the thin line between good roleplay and that's what my character would do here. Like, literally. Another one says, I have 2 questions from all this. 1, did you try to explain in character or out of character why you were insistent on treating the prisoner better than a sack of potatoes? Or at least talk out why it was so apparently bad in the Norseman's head to even just poke holes in the bag? 2, was PvP really the only option for you in this moment? It seems like some of your party members weren't very trusting of you from past experiences, and taking the steep penalty may have gone a long way in showing how dedicated you still were to the team. Exactly. Despite my second question, though, I do find it kind of ridiculous that the guy was so insistent on refusing to accommodate your simple request. This all just seems so avoidable to me. Like, so much of this was just... Stick a fork in me, man. I'm done. I'm done. Oh, boy. Any other thoughts or comments you have, Sammy, about this one?
No, that's what I got.
Awesome.
It's unfortunate.
Just why? Just so many questions on why. All right, y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys have stuck with us this long, we love and appreciate you immensely. Be sure to like and comment down below. Please tell us, what do you think was going through this guy's mind? What do you think was going through all the 80, 70, 50-year-olds from the last story's mind? What is wrong with people? See, and this is why, again, I think we all can absolutely relate to the previous post that we read is we love TTRPGs, but god damn, do we sometimes absolutely loathe with every last fiber of our being TTRPG gamers. This has been the Arcane Archive with another incredible tale of Cautionary Chronicles. Thank you all so much. Remember to subscribe and share the channel, all that good shit. We're gone, bro. I'm done. I'm fucking... Bye, everybody.